What's up, homies? My name's Cherry, and today I figured I would do my makeup and tell you guys about my cult-like insane in-laws. So I guess it's time for you to meet my friend. I haven't named her yet, but here she is. Anyway, when I was 17, I was kicked out by my mom, and my boyfriend saved me. I moved in with him, I met his mom, and I thought she was incredible. I thought all my in-laws were amazing. They took me in, and so I was super, super grateful. I was definitely not used to having a big family or even people around that cooked dinner for each other. So I loved it, living with my boyfriend. I never felt like I fit in, and it didn't even take very long for me to feel like my mother-in-law hated me, and I didn't know why. So basically I started feeling really uncomfortable because if I ever went upstairs to use the kitchen, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-laws would go silent. And it's not like they were rude to me, it's just I could tell they didn't want me there, and I could tell they didn't like me. And so I got really shy. I didn't want to disappoint them, and I didn't want them to not like me, but it just kind of felt like it was already built in. Eventually, I started putting two and two together, and I realized, oh, they don't like me because their son is spending his money on me. So I started to see manipulation that was going on, because now I'm some 17-year-old, and my boyfriend, now husband, but my boyfriend at the time, is providing for me. He's taking care of me. I was kicked out with nothing, and so he had to buy me everything. Every piece of clothing I've ever had or worn is because he bought it for me. And so I started realizing his mom was getting upset a lot about money, and she kept asking for more and more and more money from him. And keep in mind, my boyfriend at the time, he was only 18. So I was 17, but he was 18, and he did work full-time. It wasn't just his money that his mom was after. She wanted all of his attention, and I realized that she was resentful towards me because my boyfriend was spending so much time on me and so much money on me as well, which I do understand that. I can't imagine being a mom and raising a son and feeling like your son doesn't care. But the thing is, we reassured her that we do care. It's not like he was never around his mom. But the thing is, when his mom wouldn't get her way, she would get very mean towards him. Just mean, just trying to make him feel so low and down about himself. And for a while, I would hear it, and I wouldn't say anything, because I didn't want to ever come between him and his family. I didn't want to feel put in the middle, and I didn't want them to not like me, to be honest. But there was this one day that I was taking my husband's sisters to school, and I was driving their Jeep that they had. And when I came home, they accused me of stealing $300 out of their Jeep in cash, just rolled up bills. They accused me of stealing that money. And when my husband and I were like, no, I didn't take a roll of cash from your car, I promise you. They didn't really believe me. But there was never a roll of cash in that car, which is weird. I would have seen a roll of cash, and I never saw a roll of cash in that car, ever. And I feel like they were just using that as a stepping stone to hate me more. Or it was to me it felt like my mother-in-law made that shit up just to get the rest of the family on board and hating me. And it worked, because my sister-in-laws clearly despise me. Clearly. There was this one particular time, my husband and I, we were having an argument, and it's not like it was some insane argument. At this point, I had my first daughter, and she was pretty young. But we were kind of bickering, and his sister, who was pretty young at the time, she was probably 16, she barged into my room and she demanded that I give her my child. And instantly I was like, what the hell? No, dude, get out. Like my fight or flight kicked in because I'm like, who the hell is this girl like demanding my child? So I shoved her out of the room and I shut the door. And once I did that, my husband's entire family came to our room and was trying to like plow the door in. Like it was just me on one side and the rest of his family was like banging the door in trying to get to me and my kid. So that's fucking crazy. Like, that fight escalated and it turned into my mother-in-law like screaming down the stairs to us, the most horrible things. And for a little bit, I didn't give into it. I didn't want to say anything mean to her or disrespect her, but she started saying some really foul things about my husband. So I opened my mouth like I usually do, okay? I started talking. The cap came off, if you know what I mean. And I started telling her all about herself, that she shouldn't be talking to her son like this. And we got in an argument, like back and forth, me and her. And while we were arguing, I started to walk up the stairs. And she ran and she grabbed a knife. And she came up to me like she was gonna do something with the knife. And my husband handed me a knife. And so to my mother-in-law, that was like some big symbolism. And my husband hates her and that he will put me before her. So from there, we moved out of that house. We moved to a completely different state. So when we were no contact, we had discovered that my mother-in-law had used my husband's name to get multiple cars. So she had multiple cars on my husband's credit. So it was hard for us to get a car when we were getting our first car together. It was basically impossible because he was providing for me and his credit was all taken up with all these other cars. So this is around that time when my family's financial life started going downhill. We were living in a whole separate state from any sort of family or anything. And suddenly we just couldn't pay our rent anymore. Like my husband had lost a job and it was like impossible to find a new one. And we couldn't pay our rent. So we moved back to our home state. We moved back in with family, and around that time, my husband got a call from his dad stating that his mom was sick and dying and that we needed to contact her. And this is gonna sound like so cold-hearted, but it's really not. Like my husband did not want to contact his mom. He didn't want to call her at all. He basically told me that she's evil, basically, that he doesn't want to talk to his mom. He doesn't want to be in her life. But I was telling him, like, Mom, like, babe, that's your mom. Like, what if something was to happen to her? Like, you want her to like leave the world, and you guys were not on good terms. So I basically talked my husband into speaking to his mom again. So we did. And honestly, everything was fine for a while. They really, really, really helped us out. They helped us out in a lot of ways. And I really started to feel like maybe we could like come together and we could be a family. But shortly after this is when I started realizing that this like family thing is very cult-like. So as my family and I are trying to get back up on our feet, they tell us that we can move in to their basement. So we move our family into their basement because it was a better environment than where we had lived before. And really, things felt really good for a while. They really did. But there was always like something off with my mother-in-law. And the big reason I felt like that is because it felt like when my husband was around, she was like kind to me and she'd say a few words to me. But if my husband was gone at work, and I had like gone up in the kitchen to make my kids some lunch or some breakfast, she would go silent. And his mom was sick. She had a kidney transplant. So she was getting better. And every morning I would go up there and I would say, hey, how are you? Like, can I get you anything? Can I get you water? I was always checking on her, and there was times that I found her on the floor and I would pick her up and put her in her bed and make sure everything was okay and call who I needed to call. I was trying really hard to have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. But even though I was still doing all those kind things, it seemed like every time I came up the stairs, she went silent and she would do anything to avoid talking to me. And it felt like there was so much tension in the air, but I didn't get it at the time because I had no animosity towards my mother-in-law. I was trying to let go of everything and move on and have some sort of like healthy family. My sister-in-laws were never very kind. They never showed much attention to my kids. If they did, it was for like a very short duration. And it was pretty sad because my kids love everybody and they want to spend time with everybody. But it felt like they weren't really interested in being aunts, which, I mean, it's fine, I guess. And my brother-in-law was just always a straight weirdo. Like, he was always in his room. And honestly, I'd really hate to see what was in his browser. It's disturbing, I know, but like, these are the things I think, okay? And he did some pretty horrible things to my husband when they were younger. So, yeah, he was always such a weirdo. And I never trusted him. He knows I didn't like him anyway, so he just kind of stayed away from me because I had very valid reasons to not like him, and he knew that. So my father-in-law, I always liked my father-in-law. Like, even in the past when my mother-in-law, sorry, I'm sick, so it's hard for me to talk. But even in the past when my mother-in-law and I would be like bickering or whatever, my father-in-law was like never super into it, and I never had any like animosity or hate towards him. But during this time when we lived in his basement, I noticed that he would be stressed out in his life. And honestly, I really understand the stress because his wife is sick. She's healing. And honestly, during this time, my mother-in-law was in and out of the hospital, and he's stressed and he's going back and forth and he's trying to go to work too. But the problem is that he would come home and he would just start yelling down the stairs, just whatever was on his mind, anything that he ever hated about us. He would just start screaming it down the stairs. He would tell us how to like parent our kids, and he would tell us that we're like not good parents. And we didn't want to do anything to upset him. So a lot of times we would just like take it and we'd just take whatever he was saying. And we'd be like, okay, thank you. So then one day, this is around the same time, my kids and I were in the car, and I had asked them, I just had like this feeling of I should probably speak to them and ask them questions about these people in their life, because I want to make sure everyone is treating them with the respect they deserve. So I started going through one by one and naming all the people in their life and asking them if these people are nice to them. And they said everyone was nice to them, but when I got to grandma, is grandma nice to you? They both went, no. Turns out she had been body shaming my children, my little girls. And my sister-in-law had also been in on it, like sitting around listening to it and like letting my mother-in-law say these things to damage my children. Like, she was telling my kids that we aren't good parents and that we don't take care of them and that they're not healthy and they need to stop eating, basically. And when we heard this, we're living in the basement, and so we don't really know what to do. And we know how my mother-in-law is and how she likes to yell. So we ended up sending a text to my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. And we ended up saying, like, we heard what you've been doing to our kids, and we don't accept it, basically. We don't accept that. You're not going to be around our kids, and you're not going to spend time with them. You're not going to take them places because we believe our kids. And they never responded to that text message, and we thought, like, oh, like, they got the message, like, we're all in the clear. But the thing is the next day, my husband goes up the stairs to make some food or something, and my mother-in-law starts screaming, "What did I do? What did I say?" And my husband's like, "You know what you said. I believe my daughter." And he basically said that, and he kind of like scurried out of the house, like, "I'm not arguing with you, crazy lady." And so her and my father-in-law are upstairs just going off about me and my husband and how horrible we are and how we're liars and we're making our kids lie. And I say nothing because I don't want to fight with them. I don't want animosity in the house. I really don't. And from there, it basically goes quiet and they kind of stop talking about it. But the thing is, my mother-in-law starts saying things against my children that are not true. She started telling me they were making messes that they never made because I'd go to clean them up and there's no mess. If my kids were playing outside, she would slam all the windows and start yelling. She would just act like so inconvenienced by her own grandchildren. And a lot of this is when my husband was gone. So when my husband would come home, I'd tell him like, babe, your mom was being crazy today. She'd be able to be like, no, I'm not. And then it's just her word against mine. And I'm outnumbered in that house because I had like all my husband's siblings were living there and they're all on her side. My father-in-law would get stressed out and he would just start like yelling down the stairs, belittling us. He did this all the time and frequently. And the thing is that like my sister-in-laws would be like encouraging him to say what he's saying. Like he'd be backed up. He'd have all these yes men behind him, like making him feel like what he's doing is right when it's very clearly wrong. And this was a very hard day. But this one day, we were putting my son down for a nap again, and my father-in-law starts yelling down the stairs that we're horrible parents, like we're forcing my son to sleep, and basically everything we're doing is not right. Well, he starts to like come down the stairs, and like we just lived in like the downstairs living room behind a sheet, to be honest. So my husband gets right up and he's at the bottom of the stairs because he's not about to let his dad downstairs so that his dad can like invade our space. So my father-in-law is yelling in my husband's face, and then you got my sister-in-law next to my father-in-law, and she's like his hype man. Okay, she's like hyping him up to like be so angry and violent towards us. And eventually I look and I see my father-in-law just like pull his fist back and try to take a swing at my husband. And he kind of like gets my husband like slightly on the chin. And my husband just pulls back and just decks him like 3 times in the face. And his dad ended up like falling back. And he went upstairs. So my father-in-law was still screaming up the stairs. He was still mad, trying to fight. My husband had gone and tried to like de-escalate it and be like, listen, Dad, I'm sorry you're stressed out. Please, let's just like stop. Let's just drop this. Let's move on. And his dad started screaming, I'm calling the cops on you. I'm calling the cops. And we kept telling him like, please don't call the cops because you're just going to get yourself in trouble. Like you're down here assaulting us. My father-in-law just doesn't calm down. So we go downstairs and we're just like being quiet at this point. And my father-in-law will not stop screaming down the goddamn stairs. He's screaming and screaming and screaming and he won't stop. And we keep telling him to stop, stop, stop. Eventually, we have to call the police because what the heck? Like what? So we call the cops. His dad gets arrested. And keep in mind, so my mother-in-law is in the hospital during this time. She hadn't been in the hospital for months. And I feel like that was a lot of my father-in-law's animosity towards us is, it's because we didn't have a car to go see mother-in-law, and they would only let my husband go, and my husband didn't want to go if I couldn't go. So he just never went and saw his mom in the hospital. My husband wasn't interested in being like criticized or belittled by his mom, so like he didn't feel like the hospital was somewhere he wanted to go. And so after my father-in-law gets arrested, honestly the house calms down. Like it was pretty calm. My one sister-in-law was just being like very standoffish because now daddy's gone, so now she's not so like hyped to like fight us or threaten us or like try to be violent towards us. But the very next day, my husband gets arrested. So my husband's gone as well, and this is for like a whole separate issue. And I had no idea that he was going to be arrested or that anything bad was happening like that. So my husband was arrested, and all of a sudden I'm alone in this house with my kids and my creepy brother-in-law and the sister-in-laws that hate me. So that day I'm like, oh no, like where am I gonna go? So I end up calling someone in my family. I'm on the phone with this family member. She's like, oh wait, Cherry, hold on. Your mother-in-law's here. My mother-in-law had gone to this family member's house and told her, I need you to get Cherry out of this house. I'm sick of her. She has been ruining my life. She took over my whole house. She's just like telling her all these things that are not true, because for months and months, we didn't even go up the stairs, okay? Because we didn't want to compromise my mother-in-law's immune system. So we never even went up the stairs. We didn't use the kitchen. We cooked everything in an air fryer in the basement. I knew she didn't like my presence, so I stayed out of her way. So she was lying on me to my family members. So I'm like, oh no, what is going on? So I start packing frantically a bunch of stuff, and I'm like sobbing because my husband's gone and I don't understand what the fuck's going on. And I just have all these kids to care for and zero money. Okay, I had zero money. So that family member comes over to help me out. And all of a sudden, as I'm like packing, I hear a, hey Cherry, could you come upstairs and talk with us for a minute? And at first I thought it was like my sister-in-law or something. And I was like, well, she's being kind of nice. Like the way she said that, like, okay, yeah, sure. So I head up the stairs and I walk out the front door. And you know what's waiting out there for me? The fucking mafia. Everybody was out there waiting for me. My husband's entire extended family was out on the front porch, okay? And not just that, my mother-in-law had called the police. My mother-in-law had come back from the hospital and had called the police to tell the police a bunch of lies about me, to slander me to the police officers like they gave a shit about anything she was having to say, and to basically like mob me out of the house. She invited so many people there to just make me feel small and powerless, and like I better listen to what she's saying, otherwise like who knows what's gonna happen. And that day I felt like super weak and just confused, and so really like I kind of defended myself, and I was like, that's not true what you're saying, that's a lie, mother-in-law, like that's not real. That's not true. Like I've been good to you. I've never done anything negative to you. I've treated you good this entire time. And she's just straight up blatantly lying about me, even to my husband's extended family. And my husband's aunt is like, I just don't imagine him doing these kind of things. Like I don't see Cherry doing any of this either, is what his aunt had said. And it's true, because we didn't do any of the shit my mother-in-law was saying we were doing. So in that conversation with the police, my mother-in-law had told me that she wants me out right now, like immediately. The police had told her like, that's not legal, ma'am. She lives here. She's a resident here. She's lived here for a little bit. But I leave because that's what my mother-in-law wanted. And I told her I would come and get all my stuff the next day, and I would have everything clean, and you know, just to like appease her, because she's sick and I just don't want to add anything into that. I don't want to make her feel worse. Still, cops informed her too that if she was to move any of my stuff or touch it, that she would be prosecuted. And so I really thought that she wasn't going to touch anything, and she was just going to leave everything alone, and it was just going to be okay. But the next day I go back there to start packing up my stuff, and instantly I try to walk in, and there's cameras everywhere, and they're watching me, and I felt so uncomfortable, but then they like locked me out, so we had to knock on the door and get in, and instantly when we walk in there, there's this smell, okay, this horrific smell, and I walk around the corner and I find an actual human fucking turd on my bed. Okay, this thing was huge. Okay, it was huge. It was huge. I'm telling you, it disgusted me, and my family member like started going like, oh, what's this? My family member started freaking out more than I did. I was just silenced. Like I was like, what the fuck? So I pick up the shit and I go and put it in front of my sister-in-law's bedroom door. So I'm sure she stepped in it on her way out or whatever, but like, shit belongs in the toilet, sister, not on my fucking bed. My family member is like enraged for me. So she's saying like, that's nice. We're gonna call the cops and report what you've done. And that's not until I go into the bathroom and I find like, I had loads of laundry on the floor that I was gonna do for my kids. before we got like illegally evicted basically. And they had like shit on that or like peed on it. I don't know what they did to it, but it was foul and all of those clothes were ruined, and they were my kids' new school clothes. So they had like destroyed a bunch of our shit, and we already didn't have much to begin with. And I thought it was pretty evil that they would do that stuff to their own grandchildren's items. So eventually, as I'm like taking loads out to the car of like my stuff, I look at one of the cameras and I'm like, let's hide her. Anyway, I look at one of the cameras and I'm like, I know what you guys did. I know what you guys did to my stuff, and I am gonna call the cops because you're not gonna bully me like that. Like, just because I'm alone doesn't mean I'm weak. Doesn't mean that I'm like not gonna stand up for myself and you guys are just gonna treat me and my kids like that. So I was saying that in the camera, and in that time, my sister-in-law had walked up to me and she was like, Cherry, you really think we would do something like that? We would never do that. Like, we would never do that. Why would you think that? And I was like, because I know you did. Because I know how you guys are. You guys are like a giant cult. You guys all work together to like make people feel like shit. Make people feel low. And I was like, and I told her, I was like, if it wasn't you, it was your mom. And I know it was your mom. And at this point, my mother-in-law had opened up like the side door to the garage where we were at. And she was like, Cherry, actually, we let all the cats in last night. And so it's the cats. The cats did that. And I told her, do you really expect me to believe a cat took that size of a shit on my bed? That's crazy. You really think I'm gonna believe that? I was like, I told her, I said, I know what you did, and I know what you're doing, and I'm not stupid. And I told her, I was like, how does that make sense when the kind of treatment you're on, you're not supposed to have cats in your vicinity. You're not supposed to have cats in your home. You haven't been having cats in your home. And she could never make it make sense. And like, honestly, for that incident, I did call the cops. But the thing is, I was going through so much, and like I had all my kids and I was so busy like by myself that I just didn't have the energy to like fully press charges and like take pictures of all the items that the cops were wanting me to do. And I didn't want to open the damn sack of nasty ass clothes and like touch all of them and take pictures of everything that she ruined. So I just like kind of let it go because I only had so many spoons and I had zero for my in-laws anymore. I had 0 spoons. I care more about my kids than, you know, getting my revenge for that. So anyway, that's why I feel like my in-laws, like, they act like some giant cult. And I'm not gonna lie, for a minute I wanted into it. Like, I wanted into that family. I didn't grow up with a family like that, and I wanted in. And they just, I'm just not accepted. They just don't want me. And my mother-in-law was never gonna like me anyway, so I don't know. I wish I would have just like known that sooner, and then I wouldn't have had to like go through all of that bullshit. But when I say that the entire time I lived with my mother-in-law, I never did a thing to disrespect her, ever. Like, I never would. I only ever wanted to help her. And she treated me like that. And all of my in-laws, like my sister-in-laws, my brother-in-law, they allowed her to treat me like that. It's all a cult. They're all like in it together. They're all like a team. It also makes me happy that I never have to speak to her ass again, because I won't. I'm not going to no funeral. I'm not doing anything. I don't care. And honestly, either does my husband. So, but anyway, I just did like simple mascara and stuff because I'm just a mom. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm going out to like make food after this for the kids. But if you stayed this long, like, thank you so much. You're so sweet for listening to my story.